Activate.
Yeah.
So Tyler,
How we doing?
What's going on, brother?
I think your phone is locked on
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Your phone is like, I think you're like this way. There we go.
Is that
Can
better?
I think if you
Yeah.
unlock
it.
your phone, it'll let you go horizontal and it will move with you.
Yeah. No, hang on a second.
There we
There
go.
we go.
Full screen, Tyler. There we go.
Oh, good.
How you doing, brother?
Good. Just turning you up. There we go.
Nice. Oh yeah, we got the Olympia poster in the background.
Yeah, we got Ifbb.
Love it,
You
man.
got
That's
your
cool.
your gym now, right?
No, I'm actually at home. So this is one that's not gone up yet.
You got to add to the collection.
Yeah. Got to display the hard work.
Well, so it was 19 pro shows to get the qualification. Is my
Yeah,
math?
do you know what? I think so. Someone told me. I've not actually counted it, but yeah, I think it was 19. Yeah.
That just gives you a different level of appreciation for the guys for the few guys that have won. I think Andre Ferguson's won 20 something now.
Yeah, I think I looked at the last total. He was like 22.
That's incredible.
I mean, when you look at different divisions, when you look at someone like Ashley Caves, I think she just won is it 52nd?
Castlewater, is that her name?
Yeah.
Yeah, 50
Yeah.
something.
Can you imagine winning 52 pro shows?
That's ridiculous.
That's crazy.
I know. That's just, yeah, it's crazy.
Well,
So when
Tyler,
did you? Yeah, I was gonna
Agree.
say, when did you earn your IFBB Pro card?
What, where or when?
Both. Where and when?
So it was in 2020. I won the British Nationals.
And how long have you been competing since then?
I've been competing since 2009.
Okay, it's been a
So
while.
this is like my 16th year. So I actually started competing before men's physique even existed.
What was your what
classic,
category?
right?
No, I was in open.
Wow.
What
I
drew
was-
what drew you to physique?
It was because of my transplant.
Mm.
So obviously before the transplant, I was in the famous 300-pound club.
Wow.
Yeah, you have such a big.
So-
I can imagine.
Yeah, because I'm like 6'2.5", 6'3", so I carried a lot of weight. But yeah, that was back before physique even existed. So obviously after the transplant, it was a case of me thinking, where do I fit best? And obviously because I was able to retain quite a bit of tissue, physique just made sense.
Even now,
And-
your legs are among the bigger legs
Yeah.
in the division for sure.
You got amazing
And
physique.
And I don't train them.
Don't tell us
I wish
that.
I had that problem.
Yeah, your legs are just growing from the weight that has the support.
Do you know what? It really pisses some people off because they're like, "Oh, how often do you train legs?" And I'm like, "I don't."
Just walking
But that's a
around.
great problem to have though.
Yeah.
Tyler, let me ask you, since you mentioned the transplant, how was it mentally bouncing back from that?
I suppose it was difficult in a number of ways because you never know what's coming next. Obviously, when I was in the hospital, I was on a special kidney ward, so it was with a number of guys that had also had transplants, and you're seeing guys daily come in and out that have had transplants fail. They've not worked, their body's not accepted it, so you've always got this thing in the back of your mind all the time
What if?
of what is mine going to fail? Is it going to work? Am I going to wake up one morning and it's not working anymore? So there's all that side to deal with, and then you've got the medication side of things. Because even now, I have to take medication every 12 hours, and that's for life. So there's a lot to deal with. But I think once you start to adapt to sort of a different way of life and dealing with the things that you're going to have to overcome, you start to just live life as normal, really. But it's in the beginning, it can be a bit rough because, like I say, it's just that whole unknown of what might be next.
What are the statistics about on success rates for the procedure you had?
To be honest, they get better and better. So, because I had a living donor, obviously, if you have a living donor, it stands a much better chance of success. If you've had a deceased donor, so this could be people that, have unfortunately, passed away in car accidents and things like that. They might be on a donor list. So, obviously, their organs are sort of extracted straight away, taken to the hospital so someone can have one. But now on a living donor, they're expecting sort of like 25, 30 years.
Okay.
So
That's crazy.
which isn't too bad because years ago it was like 5 to 10.
Yeah.
But
So
obviously,
the life expectancy, I mean, through technology and medical,
yeah,
grade is gotten better. That's good.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I've seen a couple of guys in the hospital who are obviously a lot older than me. They've had their. I met one guy who I think he'd had his transplant for like 42 years.
Oh
Wow.
wow.
So if you can keep it going that long and look after it well, you're very, very lucky indeed.
Do you feel like going through all that shifted your mental mindset in bodybuilding itself, just to stay resilient and stay, because competing for 18, 19 years, or is that what you said?
16, yeah,
It's 16 years that you had to keep on being relentless in your pursuit to be qualified for the Olympia. I'm pretty
yeah.
sure that mindset had to play into this.
Yeah, it did definitely. And I remember when I sort of got back into competing after the transplant, and people saying to me, did you feel tired? Is it taking it out of your body and everything else? And I sort of had to explain to them because it was difficult for them to understand that once you've lived with kidney disease, you towards the end you are so tired and so run down that dieting for a show it just feels like a walk in the park. So because I'd been so used to living that way for sort of like 4 or 5 years, waiting for my transplant, but I was sleeping like 9, 10 hours a night, waking up, and I was still feeling exhausted, having to go to sleep in the afternoon. Just trying to get through the day. Because when your kidney function runs so low, I think just before I had my transplant, my kidney function was 10%.
Wow.
Yeah, which is you feel pretty crappy when you get down to that point. And you live like that every day. So when you got people sort of like 2, 3 weeks out from a show and they're complaining about being tired, I was like, this is nothing.
Yeah, no, look, like I just came off a peak week last week and I could tell you like I was towards the end I was complaining a little bit about being tired, but
Yeah,
mentally I always put myself in because I've been through a brain injury, a traumatic brain injury, and that phase I put myself in that mental space like, man, I've been through worse than this. I felt worse than
exactly.
this.
Because you compare the two and you think, yeah, do you know what? I've actually been through a lot worse than this. Yeah,
Yeah. So,
yeah,
I mean, that's a good mindset to have because I see a lot of people like that's where they fall off once they face that resistance.
yeah, exactly. You've just got to keep pushing through.
Sorry, G got kicked out accidentally. I don't know why.
Let's get him back in.
Um, so
Let's see
Tyler,
if we
wait,
can.
so that was again, they're kind of used to feeling like that. Would you say now, even like the hardest preps you've had, that it still feels that much better than when you were at your worst?
Yeah, it's still better than that because obviously because I have bloods monitored regularly. I know that everything's okay. I know that I'm tired just because I'm low on food.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. Whereas I was tired in the past because there was something fundamentally wrong in the background. So if you can distinguish the two between those, I think, yeah, do you know what? I'm tired because I've not had a lot to eat. I can get over that. It's I just think let's get through the day. I can go to bed, I wake up, and we start again. So I think it just puts things into perspective a little.
How, how has the nutrition changed from like competing at that big weight to now to physique?
It's actually a lot more comfortable. Obviously, competing at the big weight, I mean, you see these big guys anyway. They're just pushing food all the time. And I remember back in those days when I was having to do that, it just wasn't comfortable. You're eating like 5, 6,000 calories a day, sort of just forcing the food down all the time. You got your next meal, you don't want to eat it. Whereas now, obviously, things have scaled back a lot more. To begin with, we sort of took things a lot easier on the protein, obviously because of the kidney. But then over the years, as my bloods remained stable, and we thought, yeah, do you know what? We could put a bit more protein in. Let's see how we react. If we're fine, we'll keep on going. So now, yeah, it's just at like a nice, comfortable level. My lowest point of dieting, I'll probably go down to about 2,600. So it's not super low, but it's still nice and manageable.
What other
Yeah.
adjustments did you have to make diet wise to accommodate for the recovery besides the, lowering the protein for a bit?
So initially we removed all supplements. So anything, so creatine, EAAs, glutamine, everything, pre-workouts, that all came out. So we were predominantly just sticking with water. We removed red meat because obviously red meat can be a lot harsher on the digestive system, and the kidneys and everything else. And it was just a case of just introducing one thing at a time. Because I had bloods done very regularly, after the transplant, I was getting bloods done like at least once a month. So it was a case of let's introduce one thing, see how we react to it. If there's no reaction and we're good, we can keep that in. We'll bring something else in. So I sort of did that over the course of probably about 18 months to 2 years,
Wow.
so that I can get to the point where I am now, where I know what's good and what's not.
But that's a
Um,
whole different level. That's like science-based nutrition right there for sure.
well, it's because we needed to know what if we just threw everything in there and then something
Yeah,
goes
so many
wrong,
variables. Yeah.
what do we blame it on?
Yeah.
So it had to be controlled so that I knew that if I put something in there and there was a red flag, it's like, whoop, yeah, we need to get that straight back out.
And how does like peak week change for you come showtime?
A peak week, it's not too stressful to be honest. We don't really manipulate water. Water stays the same. Obviously, that was my number one stipulation. I was like, I'm not eliminate water.
Well, because your
Again,
kidney.
because of
You can't
yeah,
be
of
overly
course.
dehydrated, right?
Yeah, yeah. If it'd just be, it'd be like kidney suicide for me to,
Right. Too much stress.
yeah, to just dehydrate the kidney. So, and I think as well that's gone in to sort of prove the point of, when people are struggling to get a pump and they're too dehydrated and everything else, and I'm drinking like 2 liters of water before I get on stage. So for me, getting a pump and everything else, it's not a problem. In terms of food, I will tend to carb load early and then back off. So we get the carbs in there at the beginning of the week and then
So
just
Front
like a
loading.
front load. Yeah, front load.
yeah, front load. Yeah. Yeah. So we'll front load probably 4 days before the show for probably 2 days and then give it 2 days to then just trickle out. And then day three, we've got show day.
So with you
Mm.
doing 19 pro shows, and I remember, we met at Miami last year. You've always
Mhm.
been in or around that first call up mark. And then I know the two previous shows before Thailand, you got second place. And I remember you posting, contemplating retirement, maybe it wasn't in the cards for you and you stuck with it. In terms of like these peak weeks and the protocols you've been doing, were there any tweaks you had to make through all those shows, or would you say it was more of, hey, this is working for my body, I like my look, and it's just a matter of time? Like, what, were there any changes, or was it pretty consistent throughout your career?
It was fairly consistent, to be honest. There wasn't any fundamental changes. It was, and again, it all comes down to getting judges' feedback. There was a couple of judges that just said they want to see me fuller. So it was like, okay, next peak week, we'll just load the carbs in a bit heavier. Obviously, we've got the weight cap to play around with now, so that could make things a little more difficult. But I've sort of kept the same peak week protocol for, I'd say the last 3 years, and it's just a case now of finding what the right combo of carbs and water is, staying within weight, and just getting the timing right.
Was that the only feedback you've ever gotten, or were there other feedback that you had to work on over time, or was it just really managing the fullness?
Oh, the feedback was always more back, more back, more back, more back. That's every judge is always giving me that
You posted a
feedback.
comparison. I gotta find it on Instagram. It was definitely, yeah, I found it. Pretty drastic improvement everywhere.
Oh,
Um,
yeah, that was right.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
that was pro card win to pro win. Yeah,
yeah,
Sheesh.
yeah, your back, especially the mid back, it's just so dense and separated.
that's a lot of rowing.
My dad actually rode crew at Oxford back in the day, so
Oh, really?
yeah, I'm trying to get him in the gym to balance out more because he's getting a little hunchback because he's been
Okay.
always rowing and he doesn't like lifting as much. He's more a cardio guy, but yeah, no, your physique has always been so powerful and big. Um, and it's interesting because you fit obviously the bodybuilding criteria. You were a bodybuilder, and now
Yeah.
in men's physique, did you ever f feel a little, I guess, not confident? You know, because I know a lot of shorter guys do well in men's physique because it's easier for them to fill out their physique. Did you ever feel out of place in these lineups, or were you like, no, this actually makes me more confident that I'm bigger in stature? Because you don't have a lot of gaps in your physique either. You know, you don't look lanky at all.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Um,
I,
I think it was. Do you know what? It was a case of if I'm going to stand out, I'm either going to stand out for the right reason or the wrong reason. So if I walk out in a lineup and I'm the tallest and the biggest guy there, the judges are either going to love it or hate it. So they're either going to put me somewhere in the middle or in the first call outs, or they're just going to stand me to one side because they think I don't fit. So, I was just having to work with what I've got. And I suppose fortunately over the years it's paid off.
Yeah, I know a lot of the taller guys, they struggle to fill out in certain areas, but it was almost like you had the structure or the fullness of the shorter guys, and you didn't really have those gaps. You were just bigger. And
Uh,
I
yeah,
was a little confused to be honest. Like there were a couple of shows, especially where you definitely came in with a really good peak. And I wasn't even really sure what was holding you back. It looks like you did adjust your posing a little bit. I know you started to twist your waist and your pelvis a little bit more. Was that also something that you added into the mix and focusing on the posing?
yeah, definitely. Because and I think we've probably all been guilty of it. I think we probably all think we know how to pose really well, and especially at the pro level, you need to go and get advice at some point of what it is the judges are going to be looking for, what it is they do and don't want to see. So, I got the advice of a posing coach and, worked with them closely and, and practiced a lot as well. Um, because men's physique's difficult. We've got two poses. We get one of them wrong, and that's like half the score's gone.
Yeah.
So we need to nail those two poses. And I've been guilty of it in the past, turning around and not been posing the back properly and everything else. If you don't get looked at in that lineup when you turn around, then they're just going to move you out. So yeah, posing was definitely something that I worked on, but I think in terms of the size, what helped me was definitely muscle memory. Obviously, being a bigger guy in the past, yes, I lost a lot of weight after the transplant, but when my body responded, it came back quite quickly. So that fullness, and the roundness within the muscle and everything else, it was a lot easier for my body to get back somewhere where it's been before, rather than trying to take your body somewhere where it's never been before.
Right.
So I think that really helped.
Eating those 5, 6,000 calories a day definitely paid off then in the long run.
Well, yeah,
Because if you
Every
hadn't done
time,
that,
yeah.
maybe you had be eating a lot later, you know. But how,
of
so
course.
I want to talk about all these food changes or, manipulating for peak week. You've done so many international shows.
Mhm.
How has that experience been? Traveling, being able to manage the stress of a show day and getting the right food ready.
I suppose over the years it's been trial and error, but I think we've got it to a point now where I know what works and what doesn't. I will always try and be if it's internationally, I'll always try and be at a show sort of at least 4 or 5 days before the show. So that especially if it's if it's long haul, if I'm coming over to the States or like recently when I've been over to Asia and things like that, these are long flights. So it's a case of getting over there in plenty of time to let your body adjust and adapt. Because if you've been on a plane for a long time, you're going to have water retention, and your body's going to be fatigued and tired.
Not only
So
that, but like the time difference too, because I like when I was stationed, because I was in the army, when I was stationed in Korea, is like 12-hour difference. I'm not sure what the difference is for you guys.
They're 5 hours.
yeah, so yeah, I think it's 5 hours East Coast. But say if I was traveling over in like when I did LA, I think it was like an 8 hour difference when I did LA and Reno. So it takes a few days for you to adjust with that as well. I mean, when I did New Zealand last year, I think that was a 13-hour difference. So I mean, it's a complete, you're flipping time on its head.
Yeah.
Everything's the opposite. Um, but it's just a case of listening to your body. If you're tired in the afternoon, just go and sleep. It's peak week. There's no point keeping your body up if it doesn't want to be up.
Yeah.
And I just keep foods very simple. I always travel with my own carb sources, so I'm sticking with the same foods that I've eaten month after month after month. It's so easy to throw in your suitcase a bag of oatmeal, cream of rice, rice cakes, whatever it might be. And if it's the same brand and the same, thing that you've been eating for the last 12 weeks, then you're not going to have a problem. Then all it is just a case of getting, lean protein somewhere. If you could find somewhere that does freshly cooked chicken or whatever it might be, it's very, very easy to manage, competing when you're traveling.
Hmm. These are good tips because I'm traveling to my first national show to try to get my pro card. So this is my first time traveling, but it's not that long of a flight. It's only a 3, 4 hour flight. But I'm here freaking out and you're here doing 13, 14-hour flights. It's a whole different game.
It's just about being prepared. Just just
Yes.
be prepared ahead. Always take more than you need because there's nothing worse than panicking and thinking, "Oh, I'm going to run out of this. I've not got enough of
They
that."
never stopped you at the airport though, because they've stopped me
Yeah, they have
before.
to. Yeah, they have done sometimes. And they've asked me what all this powder is. I'm like,
Yeah,
You got the
the
protein
cream of
powder in the
rice.
bags,
I'm
the
like,
cream
I'm
of
like, you could
rice.
try it. I'm like, you could try it if you like.
They're strict. I know you can't even travel with ice packs unless it's for an injury. Like that, I remember one TSA agent was he kept repeating, "So this is for an injury," until I kind of catching on to what he was saying. I was like, "Oh yeah, yeah, it's for an injury," and he let me go through. So I actually just bought the ones that you could fill up with water and then freeze later. They come in like
Yeah.
little bags. And then I heard it for the longer flights, like you have to freeze the food completely, right? If you travel with, I guess, poultry or beef or anything, it has to be completely frozen, right? And be in your checked luggage.
No, you don't. I always take mine in my hand luggage as long as it's cooked.
Oh, okay, as long
So
as it's
it
cooked.
so what? So because it's like if you've got pre-cooked chicken or beef or whatever it might be, it's good for like 3, 4 days anyway.
Hmm.
Right.
So I will just cook everything the night before I travel, put it in the fridge. Then the morning that I travel, just put it in a cool bag, and then that cool bag goes on the plane with me.
Got it, okay.
But no, I've never had any issues with that. I mean, I take vegetables, meat, everything on the plane.
Oh, vegetables too. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Never had an issue.
Tyler, I'm curious what got you started in your fitness journey and how you got into bodybuilding and working out.
Um, I mean, it's compared to nowadays because obviously you've got kids in the gym that's like 15, 16 years old now. I was
Yeah.
actually quite late. I didn't join the gym until I was like 23.
Mm.
Um, and to be honest, it was my younger brother. He's 2 years younger than me. He got like one of these sets, that you have in the garage and things. And we'd come home from
Mhm.
work, and he'd go in there for like an hour and pump iron and stuff. And after like 2 months, I'm looking at him, and I'm like, I'm supposed to be the big brother, like. Well, look, you're getting bigger than me, so I was like, no, 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 we're joining a gym. Come on, we'll go and train together. So um, obviously complete newbie to the gym, didn't really have any idea what I was doing. But over the years, I was taken under the wing of certain people, and it was it was probably after about 3 or 4 years of sort of solid training. There was a guy who trained in the gym at the time who competed, and he just said to me, "Have you got any any ideas of competing?" And I didn't have any clue what he was talking about. I didn't know what competing was. I just said no, and he was like, "Oh, I think you'd have really good genetics for it." So I was like, "Yeah, we'll see." Okay. But really, yeah, the reason I got into it was because of my brother, really. But I've been into sports and I've always been athletic all my life. Before bodybuilding, I played basketball. Actually, when I was 16, I actually came over to Ohio to play because obviously I was trying to get like a college scholarship and all that kind of thing. But then obviously when I got into the gym a bit later on in life, I was a bit too big for playing ball.
Too big. It could be
Yeah.
You are, yeah.
Shaquille O'Neal.
Power forward.
So you
Yeah.
That's a
never
real power forward.
never played
Yeah.
The brick
you never
wall.
played football or rugby? Football or rugby was never your thing?
Yeah, when I was younger, I wasn't really into rugby that much, but yeah, obviously football is huge in the UK. It's the number one
For G and
sport.
Chris, I'm talking about soccer, but
Oh, sorry, soccer. Yeah,
Oh,
well,
oh
to
no,
them. Yeah.
I played rugby when I was stationed in Korea. I'd be afraid going against you though, Tyler. Like if you're running at me full speed at that 300-pound frame, I'll definitely get out the way. I'll be like, no, forget
yeah.
this.
No, you're good. I was never into rugby, but no, I just always had a fascination with like the American sports, and yeah, as a kid, I just loved basketball, so that was what I got into first.
I never understood
Um,
because I grew up in London. I never understood netball. I could just never.
Netball, no.
It's like kind of like tag you're it, and then you
Yeah,
can't move.
I
It's like
don't
playing like
understand that.
Twister or something, like
Yeah, you can't run with the ball, and I'm like, what's that about?
yeah, I know. And then there's no backboard. You just got to get it through. Yeah, my cousin
Yeah,
plays, but I need to learn the rules better before I go to one of
yeah,
his
that's
matches.
that's a, that's a, str- a strange sport. Yeah.
Yeah, no, soccer, lunchtime, everyone's playing. Like you're not. It's trying to think of the equivalent in the States because even in the States, you don't really see kids like playing sports
Well, we
during
used to
the
play we used to
lunchtime.
play football during lunch. That was the thing down here. I mean, for me, we used to just like throw the ball up, catch
Yeah,
it,
but it was more
run it
casual, right?
back.
Like you weren't playing like full on. I remember in the UK, we
Nah,
would have.
I got a chipped tooth. We play like full on tackle without pads.
I forgot. This is what you grew up in Miami, so
American
Yeah,
it was
football.
different.
yeah, American football. Yeah, I still got every time I go to the dentist, they're like, "Hey, does this chipped tooth bother you back there?" Nah, that happened when I was a kid. I'm still good.
Well, I mean, Tyler, I think a lot of the top bodybuilders have had backgrounds in other sports, so it must be helpful. At the same time, this sport is so unique. Um, just the subjectivity of it. I mean, when you got used to basketball, where it's like, okay, you score more points, you win. Was it a difficult transition for you to get to the point where, hey, like you could show up and do everything you were supposed to do, but that guy might beat you just because someone said so? Was that a challenge for you, or was there a pretty easy transition into the bodybuilding world?
No, I think it's difficult, and I think it's difficult for everyone in the sport, really, because we're ultimately judged on somebody else's opinion, and
Mm.
I think that's where obviously you learn over the years where the judges' feedback comes into play because it's okay developing a physique, especially when we're talking about competing. It's very well competing a physique, developing a physique that you want, but we need to listen to what it is they want. Because I could go in the gym and train and think, yeah, I want bigger arms and a bigger chest and everything else. But the judges are saying to me, but you need a bigger back. So then that's when we have to take into consideration of, oh, okay, this isn't necessarily everything that I want, and now I need to train towards what they want.
Mm.
Then it becomes difficult though, where if you go away, especially for like a year, you go away for a year, you do everything that they say, and then you still don't get rewarded for that. then it becomes difficult because it's like, oh, well, hang on, like you told me I need this X, Y, and Z. I've done that, but now you're saying that's still not good enough. But then I suppose that's when the resilience comes in, and the determination to keep going. Or ultimately, some people say, do you know what? If I'm not good enough, well, then I'll just walk away.
What went through
So
your
you feel
mind
like,
when
go ahead, go ahead,
you
Alex.
when you were considering retirement? I think you actually posted that you did. Did you ever formally retire, or was that just on the fence when you were posting about it?
I was sort of like, I was on the fence with one foot in the retirement
Yeah.
field. Because I had got to a point where I just thought, you know what, I suppose going back on what I've just said, I'm just doing what you want of me every single year, and I'm coming back, and it just never seems good enough. So even though we were sort of like, in the mix, in the top fives, the top sixes, picking up some seconds, thirds, or whatever, I just thought maybe it doesn't matter what I do, it's just not going to be good enough for what they want. Um, but then after I got those two back-to-back seconds last year, it's one of those where you think, to be
I'm
honest,
almost there. I'm almost there, basically, right?
yeah, do you know what? It's almost like the worst position to finish in. Because if you finish in like fourth or fifth, I'd have just said, yeah, I'm done. I'm not gonna get that top spot. But getting the 2 seconds, it was like, oh, it's like that little itch in the back of your brain that says,
What if?
yeah, what if you're almost there. So, and yeah, that was why I decided to obviously continue and give it one more go.
Dang, I could imagine like just getting second place and then the next show pops up. You're like, man, I'm almost there. I got to do it. And I imagine that's what happened with your qualification this year. How has prep been going for you for the Olympia so far?
So we're sort of backing off a little bit now. So
Okay.
we're because I'd originally got 3 shows planned in. So I was going to do obviously Thailand. There's a show in Italy this weekend, and then there's a show in the UK in just over 3 weeks' time. So I'd originally planned to do those three and thought, and again, in my mind, I'm saying I'll give myself 3 chances. If it doesn't happen on these three, well, then I'll finish my last show in the UK on home soil. I can walk away and say I did everything that I possibly could. Um, I didn't think I was going to do it on the first one, so you know, but I've
It's good to have
withdrawn.
contingency plans though. Like you set yourself up for success. Be like, hey, if I don't get it this show, I'm gonna try this show, and if not this show, and then opposed to just giving up after the first show.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think if you're going to spend all that time getting in shape,
You might as well.
then you can maintain it for a couple of weeks and go again. Maintain it, go again. Um, you can only do that so many times because I did it the other year where I did 5 back-to-back shows in 5 weeks. And by the time the fifth show came round, my body had just had enough. It was done. I just managed to pull it together, but after that, I was like, nah, we need to shut this down. But obviously, following Thailand, I spoke to my coach, and we both just said, there's no point extending a prep that doesn't need to be extended. We've achieved what we want to achieve, or by continuing, all you're going to do is just run your body further down. By the time you finish the British show, that only leaves us 12 weeks into Olympia. So you've got no time to have, like a rest period and then, go at it. We said we're literally going to have to go all the way through. And the last thing that we would want would be to get to the Olympia stage, look back at the pictures and think, God, I look horrible.
Because your body's already washed.
Yeah,
Nah,
you know,
I know people compete in like so many shows back to back and they don't understand the what toll it does on your body. And I'm glad you're bringing this up because this is not talked about enough. So thank
yeah.
you for
We had a buddy that did I think 9 shows last year,
yeah.
and we kept trying to, and he was coaching himself, and we would just kind of try to tell him, your body's just gonna keep regressing, and he finally got a coach. He's taking even more time now, So I think it's so important. It's really hard, obviously, to pull back from the edge. We get so close, we get in shape. Like you said, you can maintain it for a while, so you think you keep going, and then it's like body dysmorphia doesn't only affect the vision of your body, it also can affect the way you make decisions as well. It's like dysmorphia in all regards, and you're not thinking clearly. Um, so talking about like support system, who would you say got you through all this, I guess, adversity, right? Like this back and forth, finishing second, contemplating retirement. Is there anyone you want to talk about that really stepped up for you? Um, I'm sure a lot of it came internally too. You're a very driven guy, and this has been a goal of yours for a while. But I know for us specifically, we always talk about how important a circle is and having the right circle for you.
Yeah, definitely. I have a very small circle, but for me, the number one person who supported me was my wife. Because she sees what we go through day in, day out, the good times, the bad times, the tired times. And she obviously goes through the disappointment with me as well. Seeing the second places and coming close, she's seen me finish second three times. And every time when I've thought about giving up, she said, no, it was her that suggested that I do the Philippines and New Zealand last year because I did I did Miami, then I went to Toronto the week after, and then I did Alabama, and then I was also scheduled to do the St. Pete Pro, and I pulled out of that because by the time I got to Alabama, my body was done.
Yeah.
So that was a point where I was quite happy to walk away from. And she said, she said, no, she said, go home. She said, let's go back to the UK. We'll have a rest and then go again. She says, just pick a couple of shows later in the year. She says, we'll pick different destinations, different judges, so you've got different eyes on your physique and just give it another go. She believed in me. She said, "You will get there." She said, "I don't care how many shows it takes you." She says, "I believe that you'll do it." So obviously, when we did, she was a very relieved
Oh, I can
woman
only
this year.
imagine that must have been very emotional for her too. You know,
Yeah,
the
yeah, big time.
partner goes
Yeah,
through
Yeah.
prep too. The partner goes through
yeah,
prep too.
Yeah,
yeah.
because
Oh,
they
yeah, yeah.
feel it's the energy, right? I mean, you're with your, how long you been with your wife?
Oh, 10 years.
10 years. So
Yeah,
yeah, she's gonna feel your pain. She's gonna feel your disappointment.
yeah.
Yeah.
She's seen a lot of preps.
She's been seeing.
And obviously she was with me through the transplant and everything else. So, she knew what it meant to me because I after turning pro and once I was starting to get in the mix of being in those first call outs and everything else, that was when I first saw the potential of, maybe, just maybe one day I might be able to do it. That was always my ultimate goal. And I said that if I can get to the Olympia, I will quite happily, retire saying I've accomplished everything that I could ever want to accomplish. So that also then became her goal as well, because as much as she supports me and she loves me going through this and everything else, one day it will be nice for us to both have a life after competitive bodybuilding as well. Because you guys know what it's like. It's 24/7.
Yes.
There are no days off, and everything that we go through, your partner goes through as well.
But you brought up something it stuck out like a, I don't know, like a nail. You said that you guys made both of your, can you hear me? Am I
Yeah,
going through?
Yeah,
You, that both of you guys align the same goal and the same vision. I think as partners, you need that because if
yeah.
one person's over here and one person's over here, then you're gonna be constantly clashing and bumping heads and not seeing eye to eye, and that's big too. That's a big good cue point that
Yeah,
you
it
brought
is
up.
definitely because, like you say, if you've got one of you, say for instance, my goal was the Olympia, but her goal was she just wants me to stop. That's we're going to clash.
Yeah.
But when we when those goals came together like that, she said, no, I want you to get on that Olympia stage. because I think that by doing that, maybe she knew that me accomplishing that goal would then ultimately accomplish her goal of me being able to stop. So
Yeah.
it was almost like a two in one, but we were both moving in the same direction.
Do you
So
have
what's after bodybuilding?
yeah, do you have any plans? Like what or has it been like so focused on the Olympia, you don't even know what's next?
Yeah, I've really got no idea at the minute. Um, I mean, I'm always going to be around it anyway because that's what we do for a living. Me and my wife, we own our own gym, so we're in it daily. We're seeing people work out and striving towards their own goals and everything else. So we're always going to be around the environment and the lifestyle. So it's not like it's something that we're just going to completely step away from. I help other guys, compete and all this sort of stuff. So I'd still be, around the bodybuilding scene, but personally, I don't know. I'm sure I'm going to have to come up with some sort of goal to,
Well, you'll just be a
aim for.
little less hungry, you know? You'll just a
Yeah,
little
But
better.
you brought it up, Tyler, because I see this a lot, being in the military and police work, that when people retire, they don't know what to do with their hands, they just let life pass by them. But you owning a gym, you being able to coach other clients, those are some goals to have and to look forward to too, to not just be in it, but to be on the outside looking in, helping others.
yeah, definitely. And you can actually almost be in the better part of it because you're going through it with them, but you're not having to actually suffer and go through it, yourself.
You could tell them to eat this while you're eating a pizza.
Uh,
Well, maybe not in front of them, but yeah.
Yeah, not in front of them, of
hey,
course.
look,
But
you suffered long enough. You earned it, you know? It's like, what are
yeah.
they gonna say? But no, I mean, because I played semi-pro lacrosse. I played for the England national team for a little bit. And I remember when I retired in 2016, 2017, I was kind of glad not to have that stress on me for a while. It was kind of nice being relaxed, but I quickly started realizing I needed something else to compete at. I tried CrossFit for a bit, and then I got into bodybuilding. I want to say I started training 2020 was when I started training for my first show. And I realized that now I'm 35. Like once I'm done with bodybuilding, I can't just keep like I don't my dad he did try like Ironmans and he rode crew and he still rows competitively, you know, head of the Charles World Championships. And even though my dad and I are very similar, I don't know if I want to be, my 60s competing at something like that. So I'm gonna have to find something that fulfills that competitive edge. And maybe I have some posing clients. Maybe it's posing, maybe it's owning a gym. I don't know. I'm gonna have to think about that. But it sounds like I mean, you already have a gym and you said you have a pretty big roster of clients now. So it might be a pretty easy transition for you just to look at it on the other side, but still be in the sport.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a bit of a crossover period because as much as I love doing what I do, and I'm going to really enjoy the next few months leading up to Olympia, and I'm just going to embrace every second that I'm out in Vegas and everything else. But after that, I'm actually looking forward to because I've competed consistently for so long as well. I'm actually looking forward to just taking a bit of a step back and just enjoying life for a little bit. There's touching on the whole partner thing as well. There's a lot of things we've missed out on in the last few years. I think every vacation we've been on, I've been on prep. Um, which is difficult. She's very understanding about it, but you know, I've not been able to really fully enjoy a vacation yet for that reason. Things like eating out and everything else. I am looking forward to having a short period of my life where I can sort of embrace all that.
Normal, so normalcy.
Yeah, but obviously I'm still going to train. I'll train the same.
Of course. Yeah.
My
Yeah,
diet.
Tyler, don't beat yourself up for it. I mean, you got to cut back and enjoy it too, because if not, I was reading that even like a refeed could like reset your body cortisol levels, and that's something we don't take account to is, damn, that internal
Definitely.
stress, sometimes you need to kick back and relax.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I don't see you ever getting fat, Tyler. I don't see we're gonna see a. I just don't see it. Yeah, no.
Yeah, I
Um,
think we just sort of have that sort of ingrained in our brain where we'd just be like, oh no, I think we'll cut back a bit.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
mean, it depends on the person, but it takes a unique person to do bodybuilding for sure. I was hanging out with my girlfriend yesterday and a bunch of people that don't know anything about bodybuilding. And I remember we were sitting at lunch and I literally had my glass of water and they were eating their burgers and kind of giving me some looks. And then they started asking questions about it. I'm like, nope. Like, they're like, so you can't have anything. Like, what about a salad? And I'm like, no, it's not in the plan, the dressing and trying to explain it. And I don't feel weird until I'm with non-bodybuilders. Like when I'm with bodybuilders, I feel pretty normal, and I don't realize all the little things that we do and we think about until I'm with non-bodybuilders. So like little things like, oh, not weighing food, and then it really puts in perspective all the stuff that we put ourselves through, and it almost gives you like a newfound respect for what the commitment we have to the sport. When you do hang out with people that, because I know your wife, like she's obviously coaches, she understands the sport, but I'm talking about with people that they really don't have any insight into the sport at all.
yeah, definitely. Do you know what? It's not even. I would say there's even people in the gym that don't fully understand, what it is we go through on a daily basis as well, because they're, I suppose, what you would call leisurely trainers.
Yeah.
They just like to come in, work out, they sort of go through the motions, just trying to keep fit, which is fine because everybody comes in the gym for different reasons. But, they'll see you sitting there eating your chicken and veg, and they're like, do you eat that every day? And I'm like, yep. And they're like, how can you eat that every day? I'm like, I enjoy eating it. For me, it tastes good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know about
Or,
lucky.
or, or it's,
I don't have a
I was
sweet
going to
tooth.
say,
I'm lucky.
or I was going to say, or especially after a show, all the members will come in and they'll say, "Oh, you're going to eat normal food now?" And I'm like, "What's normal food?"
What's normal? This is normal. This is normal to me.
Yeah, I'm like, this is normal food. I'm like, I'm having a bit more of it. That's all.
So with the Olympia, it's hard to say, do you have any expectations or are you truly able to just enjoy the fact that you got your lifetime goal of getting there? Because it's really hard for some athletes, right? Like it's always what's next. I mean, you hear about the top athletes like Cristiano or Messi and these people, and they always say like in retrospect they wish they had enjoyed the moment a little bit more or enjoyed the wins a little more because once they got what they wanted, it was always what was next.
Yeah, what's
Um,
next? Yeah,
I mean, look, the Florida Panthers just won their second straight Stanley Cup, right? And everyone's already talking about, three-peat, next year. And I was one of the people kind of chanting that, and my girlfriend looked at me, she's like, "Can't they just enjoy the second one?" And I'm like,
yeah.
"No, we need three." And I just kind of, remembered,
It's
and
an endless pursuit of greatness, always.
yeah. So I'm just curious if you thought about that, if you're conscious of the mindset of going to Olympia and, where you place, where you fall into the mix.
Obviously, with it being my first Olympia, I'm going to be going in there as a relative unknown. We all know who the top names are, and quite rightly so. We expect them to be up there, where they belong. Um, I'm looking at it a couple of ways. So, one, I want to turn up looking my absolute best, so that I can obviously make a great impression. I think if I can try and impose my size in front of the judges, so that I stand out in that way. But also we've sort of like got a bit of a UK competition going on as well because there's if we put Ryan Terry to one side, we know he's going to be right up there.
Right.
But other than that, we've got five guys from the UK that have qualified. So we've got like a bit of internal competition going on to see who can be the highest placing British guy behind Ryan.
Do you guys communicate pretty frequently, or is it more like backhand kind of Instagram tagging or do you guys talk pretty regularly and meet
Oh,
up and
what? All the British
UK
guys?
guys, yeah, do you guys?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's quite a close knit community bodybuilding over here. Everybody knows everybody.
Oh,
So,
that's
and there's
lovely. I
Yeah,
feel like here in the US, everyone's like, so not talking about anyone in specific, but it seems like everyone's for themselves, like ego bumping heads, and I wouldn't imagine like a whole community.
oh no, not at all. We all support each other,
That's
so
beautiful.
like when I was out doing the Thailand show, they're all sending me messages saying good luck. We hope you smash it. Everything else. This past weekend, it was the Dubai show. There was a couple of the same UK guys. I'm sending messages back to them saying,
Yeah,
I'm going to be watching the show. I hope wishing each other well and everything else. We all encourage each other on. We want each other to do well. There's no sort of bad blood or competition or anything like that between us whatsoever.
It's
that's good.
important to have. I mean, it helps that it's a bit of a smaller community. I think anything that gets large scale, it's hard to keep that same feeling.
Yeah,
I mean, I know bodybuilding is still popular in the UK, but obviously there's only to an extent it's going to grow. I do
mhm.
personally, I think Ryan Terry's and Samson Dauda are the best Olympian champions. I mean, you have two UK guys holding the title right now, and I just think that they not only look the part, but they act the part.
Very
Yeah,
professional,
I agree
They're
very
with
not
that.
afraid to call out the problems they see in the sport, especially Samson. Ryan, he's just, he almost doesn't, you almost don't think of him as a bodybuilder sometimes. You almost think of him just like a top level athlete and a human being because he doesn't really act like a bodybuilder. He's very careful about how he presents himself. He's a family man. But yeah, I've only heard great things. I've met him before, and I've only heard great things from others too.
Yeah, Ryan's so professional, and he's maintained that for 12, 13 years. Like he's a very good example of what the sport, and what should be, and how you should present yourself.
Similar, I guess, path is you in a way. I mean, he kept placing really well at the Olympia, never really outside of the top 10. And I think he had finished in almost every single spot except first
Yeah, that's right.
over 10 years. And he finally got it and not once, but now twice. And so it's fitting and it's nice that he achieved that. Uh, I mean, I know he's not done yet, but towards the latter half of his career, because I
Yeah,
know, like you, there's a lot of people rooting for you to get this qualification in the industry because you've done so many shows, we've seen how close you've gotten, and I think a lot of people are also rooting for Ryan. I think you could also see the guys that were on stage with him were genuinely happy that he won. Obviously, they're all disappointed that they didn't win, but it was a nice. Um, I was there, and it was just a nice visual to see how happy everyone was for him.
yeah, because they just believed that he deserved it because he kept going for so many years and come so close. And like you say, it never ever finished outside the top 10. Just the consistency that he displayed year after year after year. And then for him to finally get it, you could see that the other competitors were genuinely happy for
Right.
him.
Yeah.
What are your
See if
thoughts
he,
on the division right now? And I know this year's Olympia is going to be arguably one of the most competitive that they've ever seen, and especially in the men's physique division. Uh, what are your thoughts on the looks? There's always there's different types of looks. You have Aaron Banks is a very different look than Brandon Hendrickson. Obviously subjective sport, but I mean, do you find yourself getting into it as a fan too, and liking certain physiques more than others, or are you just been so focused on your own goals you haven't really been paying attention?
oh no, I mean I'm ultimately a fan of the division as well.
Yeah.
I love streaming the shows when they're available and things like that. Like over in the UK, we were still able to stream like the New York Pro, Pittsburgh Pro, anything that we can stream, and I'll watch it because I am genuinely a fan of the sport. The way that men's physique has evolved over the last 5 years is just crazy. I
Just
mean,
the
I
shorts
think,
itself. I remember when the shorts looked like the old school NBA
Yeah.
basketball shorts
With
below the
Allen
knees.
Iverson.
yeah, I mean, I remember it. If we go back to like the inception of the class, I mean, it was like that beach body look they were going for.
Yes.
You know, if we went back then and then fast forward to what it was now, you'd never believe it. You know, the look that they're going for. Um, I think the weight cap has helped, but even still, there's some big guys. You know that even with the
Do
weight cap,
do you think that they do a subcategory now to men's physique as they done with, bikini and fit model? Because the same thing with bikini, right? The female started like very beach soft look and now they look like mini wellness. It's just like, whoa, the
yeah,
category keeps on getting bigger and bigger.
it's a difficult one because then if they do in 5 years' time, how much is that class going to progress? You know, and then are we just repeating the same cycle over again? I don't know.
Or have a
Uh,
transition. Yeah, like beginners, amateurs start you off in this division and then, you grow into
Okay,
physique. But
I,
I could
I
see what you're
I
saying.
wish the NPC had a better relationship with the OCB because I really think that there needs to be some kind of entry level where people are put through just to do it, experience it before they get on the NPC stage. Just because it takes so long. The regionals, we were just talking about this morning, how competitive just regional shows are now, trying to keep up with the division as it evolves. I mean, you have the same guy will win a classic NMP award at a same show. You see that happen sometimes where a guy will
yeah,
bring all his shorts. Imagine if you had a figure competitor winning bikini as well. I mean, if that happened, you don't see that in the women's side, but if it did, I mean, that would raise some eyebrows. So it is interesting that that happens in the men's side. I think it actually they almost needed it more for the men than the women even. I just feel like you look at the men's physique guys, and I mean, I was a semi-pro athlete. I still you had to change your entire shape. Like you said early in the beginning of the podcast, it's a look. You can be in shape and look great or even have abs, but that doesn't mean you're going to be able to be a men's physique competitor. You have to create that V taper that takes time to build that lat width and all that. So hopefully they do add a fit model for guys. I think it might also help the men's physique division slow down a little bit and how aggressive it's gotten.
yeah. I think they're starting to change the look slightly because I think if we go back a couple of years, it was beginning to become, in inverted commas, like a small waist competition. And it was like the guy with the tiniest waist was the guy that won it. And it was starting to become, in my eyes, a little unachievable for some people because it was like, oh, this guy's got a 26-inch waist, he's going to rock up and win it, it's game over.
Mhm.
Whereas now they seem to be awarding, with the shows I've watched anyway, a slightly more overall balanced look. From front to back, the V taper, everything else, but not necessarily focusing on that tiny, tiny waist.
Yeah,
I
there's
agree.
definitely more they look at now for sure. I
Yeah.
mean, think back to when Sadiq first started competing. And it's funny you mentioned how hard it is to pose for men's physique because Sadiq I know posted a post today talking about it. I'm
I
sure it's
saw
going to
that,
cause
yeah.
some controversial comments, but uh,
No, but he said the
it
same thing Tyler said, like, hey,
it's
we're
hard.
we're judged on two shots, front and back. You mess up one,
It's
yeah,
50%. Yeah.
Yeah, it's in bodybuilding. What is that? Eight,
Yeah.
eight.
Yeah.
Eight. You could win five of them, and you've won the show. You can
It,
afford to have three weaker poses. In men's physique, you can't. You get one of them wrong, that's it.
that's it. All
at the
eyes on
same
you.
time, I'm
And
surprised with. Sorry, go ahead, G.
I was gonna say also the other divisions involves a lot of flexing,
Yeah.
which men's physique is a very relaxed look. It's not like you're trying to overly flex the muscles to make yourself look bigger or appear bigger. So yeah, it's very hard to just kind of just stand there like a model and still give off that overwhelming appearance.
That's a good point. I found myself this weekend just in my head with my posing, like I'm trying to overflex, some poses and I don't have to, and I should be like G said, more relaxed. But to Tyler's point, you only have, a certain amount of seconds
Yeah.
to get two poses right.
Mm,
A lot goes through your head just in those couple of seconds that you gotta do the transition.
It's amazing how many people don't. There's so much free information out there, and you go to some shows, regionals, nationals, even some pro shows, and it's like you watch a YouTube video. Like, have you seen a show before? Um, it's like one of the few controllables you have, right? Like the presentation. It's hard, no get me wrong, but reps, like anything with any skill, and something
Reps.
that you can get better at.
Especially
Um,
with a coach like Tyler said earlier. You gotta
exactly.
be humble enough to receive criticism and not know that you don't know it all. And it's
I
okay
mean,
to not know it
I
all.
mean, I remember because I mean, until this season, I've been natural, and so I took it even more seriously, just because I was like, look, if I'm gonna get on stage with these big boys, like I better look the part and look like I belong there. So I was like, okay, what controllables do I have at my discretion? Okay, well, I can be a damn good poser and really nail the presentation, and then the size will come eventually. And now adding in, compounds and things like that, it helps, but like. I wish more people took it seriously because you see some guys that actually have like just like the top 1% genetics and then they don't know how to pose and I'm like, man, like if any of us had your genetics and we, it's just like a gift, like take it. So, I think nowadays it's starting to bounce back a little bit. I think people talk about posing more often now. So hopefully it becomes taken a little more seriously by people. I know for me, I just studied so Drew Cullen, my former coach. I always loved his posing, so I just watched his videos over and over and over again until and just compare it side by side. So there's a lot that if people are watching that you can do on your own even. You don't necessarily need a coach right away. If you just put in the reps and you are meticulous with how you go about it and you find a person's posing that you think you can relate to, it just takes time after that. And I tell all my clients, it's going to take at least a year to really feel comfortable and not like a fish out of water. But
Yeah, no, I was going to say totally, and people should place more of an emphasis on posing as well because you work for what 12, 16 weeks to go, you put your body through all that to ultimately stand on stage and present yourself for what a couple of minutes. And you're not going to put the effort in to practice how you're going to present yourself, which then if you don't present yourself correctly or as well as you possibly could all that 16 or 12 weeks work that you've put in is for nothing.
Mhm.
when you break down bodybuilding, you're basically a professional eater and dancer. I mean, like if you think about
Yeah.
it, like
I
you're the
never
amount
I
of
never thought of it
if
like
you
that's a
count the
wild.
hours, like even more so than training, like if you count the hours of eating, that you're actually eating versus, on stage, like that's and I know a lot of people on the outside, they might critique bodybuilding and say, hey, that's not really a sport, it's more like an activity. But if you're thinking about it as a sport, what is the skill component to bodybuilding? The posing.
The presentation,
Nothing
yeah.
else is the skill part. Like, I guess eating's not really a skill, that's something you have to do. I think there is a skill in how you train. I think, obviously when I train for lacrosse is completely different from how I train for bodybuilding. So that is also a learned skill, but posing is the art of the sport. So why would people not want to take it more seriously?
Mm.
But I know I watch we're gonna get her on the pod soon, but Rachel Daniels, she's a physique Olympian. Her posing is incredible, and she always talks about how, hey, this is how I express myself. Like this is me. This is how I pose. And her entire back is fused too, and she's one of the best posers in the league. And I have a bad back. I'm getting back surgery at the end of the year, so I always look to her for inspiration too. And just connecting with other athletes have been through similar challenges, and they still get on that stage and do their thing. Tyler, I know it's late for you.
No, that's
So
cool.
yeah, I did want to quickly just give a shout out to our sponsors at Wolfpack. This podcast is brought to you by Wolfpack. We align with their mindset of never average, always a wolf. Use code lifted at checkout and make your mark. Um, Tyler, we're gonna be rooting for you, man. I mean, ever since I met you at Miami, I've been following your journey even more closely. Um, and I think it's really inspirational. And I think I can talk for the entire bodybuilding community. We were really all rooting for you, and I think and you had that card held up, like we felt it too. And that's when you're like, this is what makes people love sports, right? This is what made people love bodybuilding. The Ryan Terry story, your story. Of course, we like people winning, but it's more than winning. Like, I think your story really expresses it's not just about winning. You can have a beautiful story in your sport where you lose more than you win. And I think that's probably the takeaway I get from this conversation.
Stay resilient.
Yeah,
But
no, I really appreciate that, guys. Thank you. It means a lot. The support that I've had throughout this has just been, it's been unbelievable, and that's what's made it even more special to me. To realise the amount of people out there that have been behind me that I've not necessarily known about at the time. It's overwhelming, and I really, really do appreciate it.
well, you're friends with the
And we
podcast
appreciate
now.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah, we appreciate you coming on the podcast. I mean, you could have simply told us no, but you gave us a
No,
chance too. So
Hey,
it
no,
means a
bless,
lot.
yeah, bless you guys. And obviously, when I'm out in the States, if I'm near any of you, I'll obviously hit you up and see if we get a
definitely.
session or something.
Yeah, Tyler,
Uh,
Or we might go to UK and train in your gym.
Well, there you go.
there we
well,
go.
yeah, because
We'll,
Tyler,
we'll,
I,
we'll make it
I I do go to
happen.
the UK fairly frequently because I have family over there, and I'll definitely hit you up. And we'll be out in Vegas too. G and I are going to be doing the amateur Olympia, so and then we're going to be obviously going to watch the Olympia. So we'll
Ah,
definitely try to see you out there in person, and we would love to actually have you back on the pod after Olympia just to catch up and hear about your experience too.
yeah,
That'd be great.
yeah, that'd be amazing. Let's make it happen. We'll meet in Vegas. I promise.
For
That sounds
sure.
good, my brother.
Looking forward to it, brother.
Yeah,
Thank you.
All right, Tyler. Yeah, we'll let you hop. We know it's, what is it, 10:40 at night over there?
yeah, it's all good. I've still got one meal left.
Oh, man. All right, man. All right, we'll talk to you later, man.
All
Enjoy
right,
your
man.
meal,
All
Take
right,
brother.
care.
guys.
See ya.
Thank you.